Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for this episode of the Amazing Podcast. And we hope you really enjoyed this episode. If you like what you listen to here, go and check out all of our other content on amazic.com. That's AMAZIC.com. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening from, whether it's Spotify or YouTube. Definitely follow us because we'll be putting out more great content like this every week. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at amazic.com. And I have with me today Maor Ezer, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Zesty. Maor, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you for inviting me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to talk to you as well because, I think the topic we've had a couple of startups and companies talking about this very topic that we're going to talk about today, which is cloud cost optimization and FinOps. And it really has become a very central topic in the past 2 years, I'd say. You go to conferences, you can't miss it. There are so many talks on this very topic. And so Zesty is actually in quite a hot space right now, FinOps and cloud cost optimization. So I'm really excited to talk to you about Zesty and all that you guys do. But before we get into your product itself, wanted to start off with just asking a bit about you and your background, what you've done up to Zesty. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. I like to see myself as an entrepreneur, even though I'm not a practicing entrepreneur for the last few years. But I was most of my career. And I sold a startup in the mobile AI space to a company named WalkMe. WalkMe is now a public company already. So I joined WalkMe when they were around 25 million ARR and grew with them for 7 years to about 270 ARR. I was I was in a few roles there, but as of late, I was the CMO of the company through the IPO, and I was then kind of the right hand to the CEO, where I helped with more on the M&A strategy, product strategy, and stuff like that. And for me, I like the positioning challenge. For me, doing, marketing and understanding a market and understanding the people inside the market and all the landscape that's moving it, building the story and building the right positioning and navigating through that while succeeding, of course, as a company, that for me is the ultimate challenge. So in my years at WalkMe, we did just that. And WalkMe is a great company. We built a category called digital adoption platform, a very successful company. And I was looking for a new adventure, somewhere where we can, roll up our sleeves and build a really interesting positioning offering and really interesting company. And then I found Zesty. And like you're saying, it's a very hot space. Everybody's talking about, cloud in general and cloud optimization specifically. And yeah, and I joined about 2 months ago. I'm the chief marketing and strategy officer here.
Right, all right. Chief Marketing and Strategy. And yeah, really cool that you've already been part of a successful exit. So looks like you bring a lot of perspective on this conversation, not just from like the tech and product perspective, but even from just the market and the business perspective. And we're really curious to hear about your views on all of this. Um, so to get us started, if you could kind of lay out some of the pain points or the challenges, because that's where the story begins for most of,
Yeah.
most of the organizations. What are you trying to, what are these organizations trying to solve around FinOps? What challenges are they facing? Can you outline for us some of the key challenges that these companies face as you speak to them?
Sure. Let's zoom out for a second. You're saying it's a hot space cloud. I think about 10, 13 years ago, it was under $1 billion in ARR, the whole market. And now it's at around 500 and something. and it's projected in a few studies to grow to 1.3 trillion by 2030. That's a massive market. What's pushing this market? Why? Why are people in a rush to move to the cloud? I think that there's a lot of innovation triggers, what I call them. Digital transformation, very broad term, but it's basically the livelihood of all enterprise companies that want to switch into the digital age, right? And they're moving a lot of their tech and a lot of their business models into the cloud. And AI is now probably the main trigger, AI, machine learning, but we had a lot of things, IoT, remote work. COVID caught everybody by surprise. Everybody was trying to move to the cloud fast, right? E-commerce, big data, all these innovation triggers have what created this huge market. And in return, AWS now has more than 200 products and services. Azure
Wow.
has more than 200 products and services. Google Cloud has 100 plus services. And then you've got Oracle, IBM, and many, many more cloud providers. It's become this crazy monster, right? And we know in reality that it's always nice looking at a straight line and imagining the growth of a market, but the usage for a company is nothing even close to a straight line, right? It's a non-linear line by design. It changes as I scale my business up and down, and even daily for many companies, the usage. So together, I think what happened is the market grew so fast. There were so many technologies out there that we could utilize to fuel that growth, right? To our hunger for growth. And we started seeing in the last couple of years all these fluctuations with how our cloud is behaving, and that sprouted a few new overlooked challenges. One, complex business models and cost models. It's very, you got to give it to AWS for inventing probably the most complicated SaaS pricing in history. We thought buying mobile phones 10 years ago was complicated plans and you had to choose and balance it out. It's tenfold, right? So that's one. Then I got to manage multi-vendor all the time because we already know that 70%, I think it was the stat, 70% of organizations are already hybrid cloud. So they use Microsoft Azure, Google, and AWS. They balance it out. So now I got to balance it out and manage it. Then I've got the whole issue of waste, which is really complex, and we'll talk about it in a second, right? And of course, I've got the complexities of scale up, down as my business grows. With all this money, Gartner has a great stat that I think it was recent, as of late 23, 30% waste. That means I spend $100 million on cloud, 30% waste. It's a big number. Cloud spend is 51% of the IT budget. So it's anyways the most massive line in the IT budget. And now we've got 30% waste. And now with companies driving efficiency and trying to get better, you have to optimize. And we know for a fact that if you don't have an optimized cloud strategy, it's going to potentially, not for a fact, I take that back, but it's going to potentially hurt your business outcomes and your business efficiency as you need to grow into the next 4 or 5 years and navigate all this AI influx and everything that's happening. So what I'm trying to say is market's growing, technology is there, innovation is in high need. If we just figure out the complexities of cost, the complexities of scale, and specifically waste and why it's happening, then organizations can go and drive innovation faster and win the next 5 years. The key is innovation. It's not in cost saving. How do I make room for innovation?
Got it.
Yeah. I hope that makes sense. That was a long pitch, but I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's a great starter for us. And I want to call attention to some of these numbers you mentioned, because I think it's really cool. Some of the numbers that you just
Sure.
mentioned to us, which is AWS has more than 200 services, so does Azure. Google Cloud is a little less, but still a lot. That was a surprising number because, people know that there are many services, but then when you actually put a number to it, it's
Yeah,
a lot more tangible. You mentioned that 30% of cloud spend is waste,
yeah.
and that's quite shocking. And my guess is if that's the average, then there are likely companies wasting even more than that, perhaps even 50% of their budget going to
By the,
waste.
by the way, that's a Gartner stat, and Deloitte ran a study that it said there's 45% potential savings. And
Mm.
we've seen companies with even 60%, 70% waste.
Wow. Up to like 60-70% of waste is huge. And like you're saying, that cloud spend is 50% or so, 50% or more of the total IT budget. And so, it's pretty, those are quite, interesting and very relevant numbers and important numbers, I think, for us to put, right at the start of this conversation, and even for everyone who's listening to this, to really go back, maybe, take a piece of paper and just write it down for your company. Where do you stand on these numbers? How much of your IT budget goes to your cloud spend? How much of that cloud spend do you think is actually being useful versus being wasted? So these are really interesting numbers to think of for each and everyone listening to this for your own organization. I see Maor has put up these stats here, and even the sources. We've got Gartner and IDC, uh, Deloitte.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting stats there. So yeah, thanks for sharing these, Maor. And I wanted to dig in to ask a bit more about who's behind these decisions and these spends, and to get to more like the teams behind these numbers within an organization. Do you see organizations setting up FinOps teams that are dedicated to cloud cost optimizations, or do you see that's not yet really caught on? It's more a minority, and instead, do you see that it's more the IT team or
Yeah.
some other team within an organization that's thinking about cost? What do you see as you speak to your customers? Which are the roles that are most concerned about FinOps? And, or more interestingly, which are the roles that may not be as concerned but should be? Could you give us some context on who are these people and what are the roles behind this FinOps challenge?
Yeah. I think I think every organization, I'll set up the before I answer, I'll set it up. I think every organization is caught in what is pretty much a company defining balance right now. Because everybody's so focused on one hand on efficiency and being profitable, and the outcome of what's happened in the last few years in our economy. So there's a race for profitability and or at least savings. And on the flip side, there's a massive race for innovation because everybody's running towards AI and innovating and all that. So I think there's a company defining balance between innovation and cost, between scale and waste, between speed and efficiency, and a lot between finance and R&D. And if we think about it, at the end of the day, R&D is tasked with, I need you to go and figure out how we innovate, how we deliver the best enterprise or whatever product to market. I want to reduce, tickets. I want to make sure that the companies that our customers are happy, that they're getting the value out of our product. No one's waking up in the morning and saying, hey, Mr. Director of R&D or VP R&D, I need you to cut down $1 million. Or I need you to reduce costs by X%. Maybe at some companies it's happening. We are seeing a little bit more attention towards it. But when you look at the actual developers and the actual R&D leaders, I think this transition is just starting to happen. I attended reInvent in December, right? Or November, was it? But late 2023. And the main keynote that the CTO of Amazon gave was about the frugal architect and about knowing your costs and implementing the costs. Why is AWS speaking about this, elephant in the room? Because we know that a happy customer is an optimized customer. But he's saying go to the root cause, go all the way down to the developers and make sure they understand the architects. When they're starting to think about the platform, they're thinking with cost in mind.
Mm.
I don't think we're there yet. This is a transition that'll probably take time. But I'm starting to see that a little bit. DevOps are still the owner of this task, primarily. DevOps, it's a great team. They want to focus on driving new things and innovation as well, but they're kind of stuck with this task of optimizing for cost. I think the mindset should change from optimizing for cost rather than optimizing for innovation. So you don't just want to save X dollars, you want to make room for project Y that's coming up so you can innovate and not need to go and ask for more budget. I think that's the critical mindset that's going to change, because I don't see overall cloud cost is going up. Maybe in one startup it's going down, but overall the usage and cost is going up. So I think DevOps will play a big role in changing the organization, in how they think and how they do, a lot before it's going to get into the developers themselves, right? Into the architects, maybe, but that's a transition that'll take time. So I think they have a big role to play. And of course, FinOps, we're seeing it come up a lot. It's not as popular as you'd think yet. You're right. The IT organization plays a role in the larger organizations. But I think the FinOps role is critical, but it's also going to be set up for success, because these guys are stuck between that company defining balance that I was talking about, where they're almost like between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, they've got, R&D telling them, let me continue, don't interrupt. Finance is pushing on the other side, save money, save money, save money. Now they've got one throat to choke. So they're going to this FinOps person or team, right? And they're trying to make changes, but it's very hard to navigate. And they're trying to drive operational excellence and things, but it's really hard to navigate. So they're looking for low-hanging fruits, sometimes with cost, sometimes with just understanding and visibility into what's happening. But those are the main players that we're seeing in the market.
Wow, really interesting when you mentioned all of the different teams that are involved. And just to clarify, when you say DevOps, you mean teams that are in charge of like the infrastructure and the
Correct.
platform engineering team, not developers plus operations, not that kind of DevOps, right?
We see it on both. We see it on both, but it's
Okay.
more infrastructure level.
All right. All right. Interesting. So we kind of got a lay of the land. We've seen you've given us some amazing stats, and you even described for us the different roles within the organization that are talking about this, and who's involved. But yeah, if we can now shift a bit into talking about the solution, uh, and how does an organization approach uh, FinOps? Should they have a FinOps strategy? If they don't have one, someone listening here, they're like, do I need a FinOps strategy? What does a FinOps strategy even look like? I don't know where to start. What would you have to tell them about how to approach, like how to start having a solution for this? And yeah, and if someone that's listening saying we already have some initiatives on cost optimization and FinOps, but maybe there's something we're missing out on. What are some of the top pitfalls with FinOps? Something that I should know about that I probably don't know about. What would you tell to these two kinds of listeners today? Someone who's not yet started and someone who's already started somewhere and is somewhere in the journey in terms of FinOps.
Look, I'll add a grain of salt to everything I say, because I am in this business for 2 months.
All right,
So,
all right.
they know more than me, right? But what I'm seeing from an external perspective, or let's call it from a bird's eye view, okay, that I can attest to.
Mm.
I think, yes, it's definitely an important function, of course. And look, it's a function that saves millions of dollars and optimizes for future. I think it's not about the FinOps. Maybe the name financial ops is a little misleading, right? Because it's not really financial ops. I think it's more about cloud operational excellence. It's big, it's a big enough budget line in every company that affects the gross margins of the company. So it's literally, for a public company, it affects in direct correlation the stock price. That means the
Mm-hmm.
CEO cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's big enough for an organization to take action and build a center of excellence focused on cloud excellence. Because that cloud excellence will, one, save money. Second, empower the company for innovation, right? With good best practices in place, and basically drive them into the future. So it's kind of a win-win, right? For them to scale up. And so if you're in FinOps, become more critical to the company. That's what I'm trying to say. Change the narrative. It's not just about the day-to-day and the saving cost. That is a very important piece of it, right? That's how you win your credit and that's how you do your job well. But elevate the conversation, drive thought leadership within your organization. Talk about, you know, why is this important for innovation? How do we clear room for more budgets? Where are we going to spend? What are the big strategies for the next year, 2, 3, right? Be part of that conversation and how you ensure that the organization is set up to reach those goals, right?
Got it.
So if you
Mm.
don't have that function, must have. If you have that function, up level, right? Do more. And I see we've met some amazing teams. In my 2 months here, I've already met some amazing FinOps teams that are pretty much shaping how the company operates. They're not just doing what they were tasked. They were really taking it to the next level.
Wow. Amazing. So, uh, yeah, so connect the dots for us and talk about, you mentioned a lot of focus you put on innovation and excellence, and it puts definitely a positive spin on the whole idea of, cost optimization, that it's not about saving money. So tell us about Zesty's approach to this,
Yeah.
and how does Zesty actually translate this into a product saying, yeah, we help you save cost, but importantly, we help you innovate more, and we help you perform better and to have a more, excellent uh, cloud architecture. How does all of that translate into Zesty's product?
Yeah, of course. I even put up a slide. I don't know if you can see the insights and automation.
Yes. Mhm.
So basically, the cloud optimization market is a little bit fragmented and hard to navigate. Like you're saying, you go to a trade show, you see many, let me save you $1, let me drive efficiencies. It's really hard to weed out the experts from, the niche players. Zesty has launched a platform as of recent. We had a few products already in the space. The company launched in 2019, so it's only 4 years old, but we've had the privilege of growing very fast. We now cater to over 500 customers and manage over 3,000 AWS accounts. I think that we've seen about $5.4 billion in contracts gone through us. So we have the experience and we have the know-how to understand what FinOps, DevOps, and this audience needs tomorrow morning to save and optimize. And when I say optimize, it's not just about one product. It's about putting in a platform, and we see it divided in two main categories. One, insights. We're trying to deliver you prescriptive recommendations, prescriptive analytics. So you don't have to sit and look at dashboards and think, what do I need to do here? you're getting the actions that you need to take. You're
Mm-hmm.
getting them already. It's learning. It's using machine learning, understanding your business, understanding your usage patterns, and recommending where you can save dollars, right? And on the other side, it's full automations. Not only do we recommend and you can take action, but on some things we can take action for you. Our business that kind of developed Zesty in the last few years is our commitment manager, where it basically, before AWS stopped SRIs, we focused on SRIs in the marketplace and optimizing the commitments for you. And now we focus on a blended approach where we manage all the different commitments for you. So a lot of companies would make the mistake of just taking savings plans for X amount of their workloads and leaving the rest on demand. And that creates a situation where this is where you start seeing waste, because you're overpaying just because you don't have the bandwidth to deal with how to manage it. And you don't have a team of FinOps managers who sit all day and try manually to optimize and buy different CRIs and savings plans and change the years and play around with the flexibility in order to facilitate your business needs. This is where we automatically do that for you and make sure to be 100% in line with your business needs. So as you grow down or up, the complexities of scale. And we have our Zesty Disk product that's more geared for EBS, less elastic block storage, where it does the exact same thing, but it moves the files around between disk spaces and does auto scaling. So if your business grows and you've got a peak on Christmas Day because people are buying a lot from your product, it knows to open it up and go down as needed, and vice versa. If you have a little bit of a bump down, it can cut the disk, and we could save a lot of money. We can talk later about one of our customers. I'd love to share it. But that's the platform. We see it as a holistic approach where you need to think insights and automations. And there are more products out there, of course, that you can add on into this platform. And we will, I'm showing you what we have today, but we will develop and release a lot more in the coming year. We have a massive roadmap ahead of us. Zesty is lucky enough to have been well funded with over $116 million for such a young company because of our growth. So we invest in R&D probably more than most companies invest in their entire sales, marketing, R&D, and G&A. So we have a lot of interesting things coming up. I won't reveal everything. We'll wait. But that's our approach, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sounds exciting. And could you give us some examples of, so yeah, you mentioned insights and you mentioned automation, and it seems like the insights are more related to metrics and data points that you can use to then make a decision and implement something on your own. And automation seems to be something that an action that Zesty would take on its own to make sure that you're spending less and you're running at peak performance. Could you give us some of the examples of this? What are the most frequent action items? Like, what are the most frequent insights that your customers would get that they can then take and put into action? Give us a couple of those examples, and then a couple of even the automation. You've given us, I think, one example already of the automation and how it saves you with disk space. Any examples that you can tell us about? What does Zesty do to kind of give us a clearer picture of what you just explained?
Sure. In the insights, anywhere from, understanding your commitments. So just making sure you take action on that. That's where usually the big dollars are. And through EBS, we just see in a second, in a couple of days, we already know your system and usage patterns and can recommend where you can save money. Unused resources are a big thing. So we can look at unused resources in various places. I mean, S3 in a lot of different services, ELB. So you can start monitoring a lot of the unused resources. And then we can't take the action for you, but we can tell you exactly how much money you can earn and where to take the action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. All right. Wow, interesting. And you also mentioned this feature that you have called Commitment Manager. I couldn't fully get what it does. Could you just explain that a bit
Yeah,
more for us? What is Commitment Manager?
sure. Commitment Manager basically sits on top of EC2, your
Okay.
compute. AWS have a very interesting way of selling the commitments. So these are basically contracts that you sign with them. And the game is between the amount of discount that you get versus the flexibility that you have as a company. The
Yeah.
more you're locked in, you can get deeper discounts, but then you're locked in, right? It's the same thing as anything in life. And the more
Mhm.
flexibility you want, I don't know, I want to move between, regions, and I want to move between different types of services, then you get a lower, right? And it varies. Are you an enterprise customer? So they have their EDP. It's a very complex world to navigate manually. I was given an example to someone, and of course, I imagine all our listeners know this field very well, but I'll give a dumb analogy, right? So imagine I could optimize one of your biggest costs at home is buying food for the family, right? Imagine I could optimize it. I could just have magically wake up in the morning and I have a machine that knows how to order from the low cost supermarket the things that doesn't matter, right? Like the deodorants and the heavy stuff, right? And the packaged goods. And it can and I can tell it I want more organic vegetables. So it knows to put an emphasis on organic vegetables. And the day they come in where they're the freshest, and it makes sure, and then it just automates the whole experience for me at my doorstep. I get what I need when I need it, and I save money. But here's the kicker: I also don't throw away too much food to the trash because it hurts throwing away food, right? You don't like taking out that garbage can and saying, "Ah, they could have ate it, or I could have, why did I waste all that?" Right? I wanted, whatever. So it also avoids the waste.
And you probably eat healthier.
And you eat healthier, you're saving money, you're not spending the time. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't understand how much resources it requires today to manage all these commitments. You have teams of people doing manual work where we have machine learning algorithm that, check this out, Dwayne, in 3 days from the day you sign with us, in 3 days you're already saving money. That is the real stat. And you're not wasting, and you're reducing waste, and we can play with it when you want to spend less. We can extend the contracts, change the orientation around, and play with the it's the perfect blend, right? That's the key of it all.
Mhm. Wow, that's a great example. I think it really drives home the point, your example of ordering from food from a restaurant or a supermarket. And if some, app can do that for us and do it better than we do, wow, that really drives home the point. Yeah,
That's
it
it's
sounds
the whole
exciting,
idea of
actually.
automation and machine learning, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
what
a
we
cool
want.
idea for a startup if someone is, yeah,
Maybe,
thinking of it.
yeah. They'll get there, I'm sure. Like the supermarket apps, they'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. Alexa tries to do some of that. Yeah, someday. Um, you mentioned about yeah, so S3 and EC2 and all of these examples, but then you also mentioned that there's 200 plus services on AWS and Azure each.
Yeah.
So in terms of coverage, what kind of services does Zesty cover among these 200? Obviously, the most frequent ones would be, the usual, the most widely used ones, EC2 and S3 and these others. But what are some of the other services that people may not expect that you can save costs on within AWS that Zesty can help you save with?
Oh, it's all over the place. I can tell you that the big cost factors are, of course, EC2 and S3. But even in EBS, for example, the elastic block storage, that wasn't a easy market to go after because most 92% of, I think it's 90% of the storage market is S3. Why? Because it's cheaper. And usually you don't need to pull in, information, more real time, more accessible. And then whoever does need about 10% of that market, just the storage market, which is smaller than the compute, right? Is is an EBS. That is a considerably a smaller product. And once we went in there and we built the automations on it, and this is a product that took us almost 3 years in development to finally show proper ROI and ARR. Now it's already deployed on a few customers, but and I can share a slide if you want on a customer story. I just saw this when they presented when I was in reInvent, and yeah, so there are a lot of other services, RDS. You can go down that list that we will start giving recommendations and insights into.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's pretty
Okay,
much that.
interesting.
We're going by the need. So we're looking at our customers, where they're wasting and deploying features this way, rather than
Mhm.
us
Yeah,
saying,
makes
right?
sense.
And we're trying to also facilitate a multi-cloud strategy as well.
All right, all right. What would that mean, multi-cloud strategy? Does that mean you can, for example, if some service, let's say EC2, I've been using EC2, but for some reason I want to move over to Azure VMs because it's cheaper or better in some way. Does Zesty help with comparing that or any insights or anything on that front? Is that what migration means?
No, so we're not. I don't want to reveal too much of our roadmap ahead.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
but right now we're just plan to cover with certain functionality and insights and automations, a more
Okay.
multi-cloud strategy. Because again, companies do have a hybrid
Mhm.
strategy already in place. There's no customer that's saying, "Hey, I only use AWS," or "Hey, I only use GCP." They all have some kind of mix happening.
Mhm.
Either they're already trying what you just said, right? Let's move 10% here. Let's move this feature here. Um,
Mhm.
or they're doing it for other reasons, but it is a way that we do see companies save cost, no doubt.
Okay. Yeah. Neat. You mentioned you'd tell us about uh, one of your customers and how much they saved once they started using Zesty. So could you tell us a bit about that story?
Yeah, sure. Securonics is a great company, and we
Mhm.
had the privilege. I want to show you a slide. Hold on. We had
Mhm.
the hold on. I got stuck. Too many screens. Um, we had the privilege of having them join us at reInvent this year, and yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
And they shared the success story. They
Mhm.
used us for their EBS storage. And this is a great team of FinOps. So this is an organization that took the initiative, that was an early adopter, put in a whole proper team of FinOps in place. And look at these numbers. They decreased disk size from 6.8 petabytes to 3.15, lowered overall provision storage by 50%. You see how we were able, this is the total disk size, and this is the in use. So we were able to actually track their usage. They increased disk utilization from 40% to 80%. That means they bought something and 60% went to the trash. This is the waste, right? They bought that jar of pickles, but could only eat 40% of it. The 60% went down, right? They're saving $200,000 a month. That's $2.4 million a year just on EBS. Isn't that a great number, right? You
Yeah.
can actually see where they were able to reduce the spend and the utilization, of course, increase the utilization. But what I loved about this at the end, Magna spoke about that it's not just the 200K that they saved. It's the hours that cleared up for them as a team that they can now work on other initiatives and drive and reduce waste and drive optimization elsewhere.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
we see these type of value stories all across. In the commitment
Mm.
manager, I mean, I was surprised when I joined here, I have to say, companies are literally saving millions of dollars every year. And they start saving from day 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's there's it's not about Zesty and it's amazing. It's about there is a lot of waste.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
That's
room
true.
for opportunity.
Yeah. And yeah, it's quite fascinating. Um, and yeah, that was really a cool example that you shared. And so that's something I love about this cost optimization as a product, which is usually when you buy a product, you're thinking about how much is the spend, the the total cost of ownership and all of that. But then when you think of this kind of a product, um, it's like you can actually think of it as not really spend, because what you save would be much more than what you actually spend.
Right.
Any thoughts on that front? How can someone who is, thinking about cost optimization, think about it, and what are the reasons they should, or rather, how should they think about this as, I'm not really spending, but I'm actually going to save much more than what I even spend. It's going to become minuscule amount that I actually spend.
Yeah. So one, that's the beautiful thing about buying a product that does optimization, because if the company believes in what they do, and we do, then they can reassure you that you're going to get it. You don't need to go to your manager and ask for budget now for a new piece of software, because we know that's not fun. And then you have to make the whole case and everything. You put it in place. In the first call we already set it up that you can see how much savings you're going to get. So even before engaging with us, you know how much savings you're going to get. And then you can do the math and say, hold on, I'm going to go in a few days to my boss's office and say, I just saved the company X dollars.
Mm.
Right? I
Wow.
did my job very well, and I'm the hero of the story, right? And the cost of Zesty is just bundled in. So that's the beautiful thing. When you save money, you're able to prove the value. And of course, you're not going to buy a piece of software that costs more than you can save, because otherwise that's, defeats the whole purpose, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 really cool. Yeah, some great reasons to really think about this more carefully.
In reality, Dwayne, it really is. Um, there's no reason not to be minded to optimization, because there is waste,
Mhm.
and it's just healthy. Like, even if no one's pushing you to save money, and even if you don't care about money, it's just healthy operational excellence. Like, you should thrive as an individual and as a professional to do a good job, right? It's like having your room very, very, very dirty with a lot of junk inside. You should strive to have a proper room that you can enjoy, right? And it's just best practices. So I do urge everyone to give it a try, learn a little bit more. Maybe the EBS product is not for you. Maybe the commitment manager is for you. Maybe you just want the insights. Maybe you're thinking about spots, Kubernetes. Doesn't matter where you are. Open your mind to having more of an optimized kind of mindset.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
by the way, it is proven. I'm sorry to go off topic a little bit, but it is proven that it reduces the carbon footprint. I don't know if that's big on everyone listening, but 30% waste. That means that all these massive facilities that are using a ton of energy could be reduced by 30%. That's 30%, better air that we breathe at the end of the day. And there has been a lot of awareness towards it lately. So, it's it's also part of your motivation for why you should optimize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Those are some great thoughts. So, how does someone get started with this? Let's say they're interested. How do they start? What would happen once they get in touch with you? What's the first day like or the first week like?
Yeah, sure. So they can reach out through the website, through any one of the channels, read more about us. You can read some customer reviews on g2.com. There are great stories there. You can see how much people saved and their experiences. I love G2 because it's very objective. You can't influence what people write, obviously. So it's the real story. I always say this in marketing. You can see as many YouTube videos and walk into a store when you want to buy a TV, but the one that's going to convince you most is if your friend tells you, "Hey, I just bought this TV and it's a great TV," right? And that's G2, right? That it's like it's someone that owns that profession and can
Mm-hmm.
recommend. Reach out. You'll talk to one of our experts. Our cloud experts will get in touch with you, and in the first call you could already understand how you can save money and from where,
Mm-hmm.
and you could be up and running again within 3 days when you make the purchase.
All right.
So it's really easy because we tell you how much savings, we tell you how much Zesty is going to cost as per the savings, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can just get started.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a very light commitment, so I'm sure it's going to be, we've never had anyone say we haven't saved,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is exactly what you see is what you get, so you know exactly what you're
Mm-hmm.
going at. That's the beautiful thing versus other products I've seen in the past.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. So this initial assessment to say, this is how much you're spending and this is how much you can save, is that something that's done with the tool itself that integrates with your existing architecture and figures out how big it is, where the spend is, and gives you a number? Or is this something that's done manually by a team at Zesty that asks you questions and then estimates how
No,
much
no,
you can?
you open up a IM role for us in the AWS console. It takes two
Okay.
seconds and it's an automatic process.
All right. Interesting. Quite neat. So, yeah, that was a really fascinating conversation. As we draw to a close, the last question I want to ask you, Maor, is just looking ahead the next 1 year or so in this space and even for Zesty itself, without obviously saying exactly what Zesty is working on. What are some things that you see happening in this space that people should keep an eye out for? And or another way to put it is give us a very broad top level view of the roadmap of Zesty and what's coming up. Kind of get people excited about the future of the next 1 year of
Yeah,
FinOps and cloud cost optimization, or as you put it, cloud operational excellence is what you said. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Let's end on a positive note.
yeah. So we're always on a positive note. So
Yeah, that's true. Sorry.
so I think first of all, on a personal level, think big. Think about what's driving innovation in the organization, how you attach yourself to those innovation triggers, and how you can enable your organization to get there. Because I think it's a big challenge. I've seen projects die because they didn't have budget, and it's a shame because innovation is the main thing that we're all about. That's one. On the Zesty side, we're doing the shift to being a platform right now.
Okay.
And that shift has already happened half a year ago, but you're going to see us offering you a more wide array of product lines. You're going to see us trying to help you really own that cloud operational excellence strategy, right? I don't want to give too much information, but I do assure you that a lot of interesting products are coming, and stay up to date, not only about Zesty, but about all the cloud providers, because things change every single day. Prices go up, new products are introduced to replace the old. it's hard to keep up, but I can give you one big tip is keep up because
Mm.
that's where you save and that's where you're on top of it and that's where you lead inside your organization. And we're gonna also help you do that.
Okay, wow, awesome. That was a fascinating discussion I had with you, Maor. Thanks for just sharing all of your insight and perspective. I think you really got us hooked onto this idea of what is cloud cost optimization, and even thinking beyond just saving costs. You really brought out some key stats and gave us some real examples of your own customers that are saving huge and are just better off. And you really drove it home with a lot of great examples as well from just day-to-day life, uh, to think about this whole challenge that everyone is dealing with. And so really interesting. So encourage all of our listeners to go and check out Zesty and get in touch and see how you can, start saving and even performing even better using their solutions. So Maor, thanks. But before you go, just a couple of questions to get to know you a bit more.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, here goes. What would be your alternate career path if not for your job in tech?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I always loved my dream job is to work in some market and haggle all day. That would be the funnest thing for me, but that's not an alternate, career path. But if I wasn't in marketing, I'd probably be um, deeper in sales somehow and developing. I am very much an entrepreneur, so I can that is my trade.
Okay, okay. Yeah, not too far out, I guess. So
Yeah, not too far out.
nice. So what was the moment you knew you were going to be a marketer? Take us back.
Um, yeah, I had a startup in the music industry field in music licensing. It was called ulicense.com. That was back in 2007. And I brought in so much traffic through different tactics. And I remember that one day I spoke with a professional. I just did what I felt like I was very active in social networks and I was bringing traffic through there and in SEO and the things we did and the articles we wrote. And then I sat in some presentation and they explained marketing. I'm like, hey, I do all that stuff. And then I realized it comes very naturally to me and that's when I knew.
Oh, okay. Wow, cool. Your next question. So considering that Zesty is about, being financially responsible, saving costs, is there any personal finance hack that you could actually share with us that maybe you got from Zesty or maybe otherwise that you've been practicing since a long time? Anything at all that, you know, uh, helps you be more financially responsible personally? I don't know how you would answer this and if you would, but yeah, it just came to my mind and I thought I'd ask you.
Yeah, it's a great question. Do I really need it? I have a simple rule with myself. 24 hours. I want to buy something, no problem. Wait 24 hours. Ask yourself in 24 hours, do I really need it? If the answer is yes, fine, go buy it. But 24 hours, not at midnight. I see a nice shoe on some website, boom. Or I want to buy this, boom. Do I really need it? 24 hours. That's a good
Yeah,
tip for
that's a great. Uh,
that could save you half of the
yeah,
wasted products that we buy today.
yeah. Because a lot of times it's these chemicals in our brain, right? Dopamine and all of that that make us want to have that rush of
Of
buying
course.
something.
It
And
catches you in a certain atmosphere, in a certain time in your life, with certain messaging. Everything is a sale. Everything is a sale. Give it 24 hours. If in 24 hours your mind doesn't change, fine, go for it. I'm not saying don't buy. I like buying great stuff, right? I'm a big guitar collector. I like spending money on, other things, but 24 hours.
that's really interesting. We should connect on that after we talk because I've got a couple of guitars I play as well. So
All
yeah.
right.
Your next question, what's one work tool that you can't live without?
I think the entire, honestly, to be really, really honest, I think the entire Google suite, I live and breathe it, right? Google Drive, Slides, it's my main work tool. And I thought of this question a lot because I worked at WalkMe and we dealt a lot with enterprise applications. I'm heavy on ChatGPT now. I don't use it for writing, even though I write a lot. I use it for research. I try to take a different approach in terms that I use it as kind of my friend and I consult with it. And I try to, teach it in that mindset. So that's
Mhm.
been a nice work tool that's kind of gone into my day to day recently, but definitely Google Suite did a great job.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I can give a good kudos to other products, but we use Monday.com here and stuff like that. But those would be the top ones.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good list. A lot of common things there. Um, the last question for you is what's one tech company that inspires you, and what about them inspires you?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, I like innovation. So of course I'm going to be inspired by what they do at ChatGPT because they pretty much were able to kind of crack the LLM model like no other company would. I do love WalkMe. I still am a big fan. Digital adoption is a big need. Organizations spend quite a lot of money on IT and not IT, I'm sorry, software and it's very hard to connect between users and technology. And at the end of the day, there's still a human being that needs to use this software. And WalkMe comes in with a lot of innovative ways to solve it. So I'm a very big fan still. Um, yeah, I got to think about that one. It's a good question. I have different companies inspire me in different ways. There are companies that build a proper public company and very solid and we're able to maintain market. So I love those type of companies like ServiceNow or a big company like that. And some are more innovative and startups. I could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think you're a really curious blend of marketer and entrepreneur. Yeah, it's really interesting. All of those things that you mentioned. Yeah, with that we come to the end of this conversation. It was quite fascinating chatting with you. There's just so much that we covered in this time, and I'm sure there's more we could keep going. But I hope you'll come back after a few months, maybe a year, give us a part two on what Zesty has been up to and some of the cool things that Zesty launches in the coming year. If you have something big dropping at Zesty, do come back and tell us about it.
Of course, I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, sure. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in again. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.